I never imagined that fixing a dripping faucet could turn into the most unexpected and profound experience of my life. The afternoon light filtered through the kitchen window, casting long shadows across the linoleum. I stood at the sink, the smell of chamomile tea drifting up from the cup in my hand, the quiet hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the room. I had been alone for 3 years, and the world outside had grown very familiar. Yet in that moment, something was about to change, though I did not yet know how. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and write in the comments which city you are listening from. It means a great deal to us. The faucet had begun to leak that morning, a slow, persistent drip that grew louder with each passing hour. I had lived alone in this house for 3 years now, ever since my husband passed. The days were a gentle rhythm of routine: morning tea, the creak of floorboards underfoot, the soft glow of the afternoon sun on the carpet. I did not mind the solitude, though I did miss the quiet companionship of another person in the house. The leak became a small problem, then a nuisance, then an inconvenience I could no longer ignore. I picked up the phone and dialed the number for a local handyman, a man named Harold who had answered my call last year when the garage door had stopped opening. Harold arrived on the dot of 4 o'clock. He was a man of about 60, with the kind of calm presence that made the world feel smaller and safer all at once. His hands were steady as he set down his tool bag, and he carried himself with the unhurried grace of someone who had seen many days come and go. He wore a simple blue shirt, the fabric soft and worn, and his eyes held a quiet warmth that made me feel instantly at ease. We exchanged pleasantries, the kind of small talk that feels necessary but never quite natural when you are alone. He asked about the weather, and I mentioned the unseasonable warmth. He nodded, as if he understood something I had not yet put into words. I watched him as he knelt beside the sink, his movements deliberate and unhurried. There was something unexpected in his presence, something that made the air in the kitchen feel different, though I could not have said exactly how. He worked in silence, the sound of his breathing steady and calm, the smell of his soap and metal tools filling the small space. I found myself standing closer than I had planned, drawn to the quiet concentration of his work. He did not notice, or if he did, he said nothing. The room felt smaller with the two of us in it, the space between us filled with a quiet understanding that had not yet found its words. As Harold worked, I busied myself with small domestic rituals. I brewed another cup of tea, the steam rising in gentle curls, and straightened a few books on the shelf above the sink. I washed a dish that had been waiting for me since breakfast, the water warm and comforting against my hands. Each small task gave me something to do with my hands, while my mind wandered to the unexpected feeling of not being alone. The faucet was a simple problem, a drip that needed a new washer, but the presence of another person in my home felt like a quiet miracle. I did not touch Harold. I simply watched, standing a few feet away, my eyes fixed on the steady rhythm of his work. The kitchen felt alive in a way it had not in a very long time. The conversation began naturally, as conversations often do when two people find themselves in close quarters. Harold paused, wiping his hands on a rag, and asked about the house. I told him it had been my husband's home for 40 years, and I had kept it exactly as he had left it. He asked if I had made any changes since he was last here, and I admitted that I had not. The house remained a museum of memory, each object a small reminder of a life that had been. Harold nodded, as if he understood something about the weight of such a place. He asked if I missed having someone to share it with, and I answered more honestly than I had intended. I told him I missed the companionship, the quiet presence of another person in the room, the way my husband had always known when I needed something without me having to ask. Harold listened, his eyes steady on mine. He told me that he had moved back to his hometown after his wife passed, that he had spent years away, working in cities far from here. He had come home to find the house empty, the life he had known gone, and he had been learning to live with the quietness of it all. He spoke of his children, grown and distant, of the life he had simplified to the essentials. We spoke of loss, of the quiet grief that comes with living alone, of the way the world can feel both smaller and larger all at once. There was a recognition of loneliness meeting loneliness, a shared understanding that neither of us had to name aloud. We were two people who had not spoken honestly in a long time, and we were surprised to find ourselves doing it now. The afternoon light began to fade, the room growing soft and dim. Harold looked at his watch, then back at the faucet, and said he could finish it in just a few more minutes. I offered him tea, and he accepted, though he said he should be going. I insisted, and he smiled, a gentle curve of his lips. We sat at the kitchen table, 2 cups of tea steaming between us, the quiet of the room filled with the soft ticking of the clock. He told me that he had been fixing things for people in the neighborhood, that he enjoyed the work but that he also enjoyed the company. He said that sometimes, when he was in a house, he felt like he was visiting a piece of someone's life, a memory, a story. I listened, my heart full of something I could not name. We sat in the quiet, 2 people who had not been seen in a very long time, both choosing to remain in each other's presence. Harold reached across the table and took my hand in his. His touch was warm and steady, the kind of touch that speaks without words. He held it for a moment, then let go, and I did not pull away. I simply allowed it, my hand resting in his for a few seconds longer than necessary. The gesture was deliberate, unhurried, and filled with a quiet acknowledgement that neither of us needed to explain. I felt the warmth of his skin, the calluses on his fingers from years of work, and I understood, in that moment, that I was being seen. I was being seen not for who I had been, not for who I had lost, but for who I was in that moment, standing in my kitchen with a man who had come to fix a faucet and had instead fixed something in me. Harold finished the repair, tightening the last screw with a soft click. He packed his tools into his bag, the sound of metal on wood familiar and comforting. He thanked me for the tea, and I thanked him for coming. We stood at the door, the afternoon light now golden and soft, and he promised to come back next week to check on the pipes. I watched him walk down the path, his tool bag swinging at his side, and I stood in the doorway until he turned the corner. I closed the door and looked at the faucet, now steady and silent, and I understood that something else in the house, and in me, had also been repaired. I did not know what would come next, but I knew that I was no longer alone. Life does not stop surprising you. It only changes the way it knocks on your door.